Captain, enemy ships decloaking off of port bow.
They're charging weapons.
Shields up. Red alert.
They're firing!
Containment failure detected. Warp core breach imminent.
Welcome to Warp Core Breach, episode 17. On this episode, Nick and David review Wave 20. The Faction Report debunks the Borg. Natasha shows some love and hate for Bioships and Bajorans. Griffin talks about Nemesis done right. Dan readies us for Temporal Cold War OP1. And we all say, pardon my boarding house reach, as we discuss the cards we're thankful for.
Warning. Warp core breach detected.
I'm David Montgomery, and here's my co-host, the Data to my Picard.
I'm Nick. Would you like me to drive, sir?
No, that's alright, Mr. Data. I'm feeling the need for some unsafe velocities here.
As you wish, sir.
Okay, now, find me a way out of this ship.
Now, where's my seatbelt?
Really? You feel the need for a seatbelt? Are you telling me that you don't feel safe with my piloting abilities here?
Sir, there's a 16.21 to 1 chance that this will end in miserable failure.
Never tell me the odds. Oh wait, wrong franchise.
See you in Vegas.
Alright, yes, we are talking about Data and Picard in the Scorpion Fighters in Nemesis. Say what you will about the movie, but I enjoyed that scene and it gave us Scorpion Fighters.
I think you're thinking of the Argo, but it all translates.
Was Data actually on the Argo? Oh yeah, he was. It was Worf, Data, and Picard.
That's right.
Yeah, it's all there. I hear it's been another busy week with you and Shapeways. I think you might be addicted, Nick.
Yes, well, after getting that sensor pod upgrade for the Phoenix and seeing what you had brought in, I've been thinking about it for a while, and I really wanted to get an NX-01 refit. So I ordered 2 of those from 2 different designers. And of course, I went for Riker's USS Titan. So got some goodies on the way.
That Titan is such a pretty ship.
Mm.
Hopefully by the time this airs, I will have my unboxing of my repainted ships up on the shipyard. We'll see. That all comes down to how quickly editing goes.
I'm looking forward to seeing that.
I did a live unboxing. Basically, the camera was rolling as I opened them up and looked at them for the first time. But, that Titan repaint was just fantastic.
Nice.
The model itself is a really good model to start with, and that's always encouraging.
You need a good foundation, and when you've got it, it's even better.
Yeah, I mean, for people who don't know the way Shapeways works, and no fault if you don't, but there's different materials you can use to print items with. And basically, the better the material, the more expensive it is, but also the more detail you get.
And in some cases, the more brittle it is.
Yes, as my future Enterprise found out.
Yeah.
But that's all fixed. But in doing so, I went with a cheaper Titan because that was the only thing that was available. And it was less detailed than I was originally expecting, which wasn't a huge problem. But then I get the repaint back and I'm like, wow, that looks as good as anything I've seen from the super detailed that I've gotten from Shapeways. So I can't tell the difference, and that tells you what a great paint job can do for anything.
Absolutely.
Shapeways is definitely the way to go with custom work. There's at least 2 good shops for good Star Trek stuff, and hopefully more people take some initiative and do stuff and come up with your own unique designs. And there are plenty of people in the customs and mission group that will create custom cards and say, hey, you got a ship, we'll figure something out for it.
Exactly.
I know that the FASA Star Trek game, Starfleet Battles, had a whole bunch of different unique ship designs, and now there's cards and miniatures for those things. So all kinds of ways you can go with that and just create your own stuff and use them in missions and stuff like that. I know Dave Griffin's done stuff like that, the guy that does the mission segment, and he enjoys what's there, and it's a great aspect that he's been able to bring in and say, hey, here's something more, and that's another avenue for the future of this game.
Nice.
So the shipyard will at some point be releasing the Zendis preview. I'm not holding it hostage for anything. It is solely down to editing work and my time. But at this point, I can say that it is good stuff. I won't say that it is the absolute best ship that I've ever seen in my life. But it is a good ship. I think that it, together with Azadi Prime and the Diaspora, makes Xindi a very intriguing small faction. Yeah, and I'll also have the grand prize up there, and then you folks will see all the Temporal Cold War stuff. I did get the prize ship in from the Void today. That's the Romulan ship, and I forget the name of it. Frankly, all the Daenerydixes start blending in together. But that'll be up in December. I'm not even thinking about that right now. I've just mentioned it to mention it at this point, that it exists and it's in the pipeline now. So,
excellent.
I should say it's in December, asterisk, I need to get an official date from WizKids when they want that out. But, yeah. So that's kind of what's going on with the shipyard. We've got 2 more videos in the tournament to come out, semifinal 2, and then the finals. Again, editing time, but they're in the pipeline. They'll get there. At some point, we're taking a week off from Warp Core Breach, and then I'll have a whole bunch of time to edit. Yay!
Yay!
Nick's like, really? I'm like, well, hey.
Oh, it's all good.
You got anything else going on with you in the Star Trek world?
Not too much. I'm looking to peel back on one of the venues and just double up on my main venue, because that's where the concentration of players seems to be. So thinking of doing possibly Tuesdays and Wednesdays instead of Tuesdays and every second Thursday at the other place. So see how that goes, see if that works better for the players, and keep building.
Okay, good stuff.
And it's the IRW Temet, by the way.
Ah, yeah. I knew it was something with a hyphen. I'm like, I'm never going to remember that. So thank you for looking that up.
No problem.
Yeah, for me, Temporal Cold War 1 is still a week and a half away, so I'm in the early stages of figuring out what I actually want to fly for that list. But fortunately, we have a new contributor in this episode.
Excellent.
Dan is going to start doing a segment once a month talking about the OPs and giving us some strategy hints for that. So I'll be listening to that segment and maybe getting some helpful hints and tricks for what to do.
And we can always use some new perspective, can't we? Some new blood.
Hey, I was excited to get somebody saying, hey, I got a great idea for the show, and if you're interested, I'll do the segment. I'm like, great, here's what I need you to do. And then, like, 3 days later, we had a segment. I'm like, awesome.
Bam.
So you too can be a contributor. All you need is an idea, and if you don't have any ideas, we'd still love to have you for the question of the week in the top 3. I think that brings us to our main topic for today. And yes, we're going to be like every other main podcast and actually do a normal wave review.
Oh, shock and awe.
Well, and we're doing it for a couple of reasons. One, it's the news, and it's important to talk about the ships that are actually out. 2, State of the Federation isn't as frequent as they once were, so you have one less perspective on it. And 3, we don't always have tons of main topics, so we figure one topic a month being a wave review isn't a bad thing.
Right. Plus, having a little bit of fresh perspective on these things might help add some value to the booster packs that we might otherwise pass by, or give more value to ones we're already going for. It's like, oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, so of course we can look at cards and we can sit here and we can go, oh, that's terrible, that's horrible, I'm never going to run that. But ultimately what our aim is with this is to try to figure out what really is worthwhile picking up. Consider this more of a shopper's guide than a critique of every single card. And we may end up saying, hey, this isn't great, so don't buy it. That doesn't mean that every single person needs to pay attention to us. We are happy to say, you know what? I'm going to pick it up anyways. Mm-hmm. And the odds are I'm going to pick up all of these. But I may not find a use for everything right now.
And I've actually just gotten to the point with the last couple waves where I'm being more selective of what I buy. And it's not really down to money, it's just down to what I do and don't want.
Yeah, some of it comes down to storage space.
Yeah, I've just finally become the person that's not gotta catch 'em all.
I am the person who is keeping one of my local venues afloat in the world of Attack Wing, so I am still the gotta catch 'em all person.
Almost obligated.
I mean, I could certainly say, hey, I don't want that one ship, and they'd be like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But at some point, I'm like, I'm going to want them all anyways. I mean, I picked up a Tholia 1, for goodness sakes. If that's not worth it...
Hey, I still want more. And word to the makers out there, the Tholian ships are designed for multiple use and to lay down these energy webs. So why are they crippled such that they can't? It's counterintuitive and counter to the design of the cards. So let's maybe see some action there. Maybe a second unique named Tholian ship coming out, and some rewrite of the rules.
I'm not entirely sure, but I would think that another Tholian ship is not in the way, way, way out there future.
In the very least, a unique Tholian ship card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Wave 20. Where do you want to get started?
Let's start with the Halik Raider.
Okay. So, slash line of 2233. Named ability. When defending, during the roll defense dice step, you can disable one of your active shields to gain +2 defense dice.
For that attack.
Yeah, for that attack. And that's a when defending, so you can do it each time you're attacked.
So you can use it up to 3 times if you got full shields, if you're getting attacked 3 times in the round. Now, whether or not it's worth giving up, a shield, which is essentially almost like an evade for your hull, for a chance at an evade or two, it's a toss-up.
Yeah.
Probably not something I would risk that often.
The nice thing is you know what your opponents rolled before you have to make this decision.
Right, so like if they've only got 1 or 2 hits, this is something I'm more likely to use.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be using this to get extra dice against a big, swathing attack.
I think what it comes down to here, this named ability, I think, is better than the other Kazon Raider. Honestly, forget what it does. But the ship itself falls into the same trap. It's 2 attack dice and 6 total durability. Yes, it's a 180 arc, which is pretty good.
I do like the 180 arcs.
And it's got a hard turn that's white, which on a 180 arc is pretty good. Ships that are 6 durability or less, this is certainly something to at least consider. But this not having a tech slot hurts it more than anything. The nice thing is this probably isn't your opponent's number 1 targeting priority.
No.
And it's probably a nice support ship in a Kazon pure fleet. From just a ship perspective, I would say if you're playing in fleet pure and you really want to make Kazon work, you probably want to have this ship.
4 unique ships.
Yeah, outside of that, I don't know that you need this, just from a ship perspective.
Yeah, it's almost like you would need a resource or a non-resource add-on card that would allow you to make use of these smaller ships. Like, for every ship after the first that has like a hull 3 or less, you get -1 defense die on the target or something like that. Yeah, swarm tactics.
Yeah, you even need like Hood Riker on this. Extra defense die and convert a battle station to an evade.
Exactly.
You do that, now you've got something, because then you'd be rolling 5 defense die, get a natural conversion.
Right.
At that point, now you're looking at something that can actually evade worth anything, but Riker has so many other applications. Okay, so the captain isn't of much use in terms of making this a viable ship. Let's see if any of our upgrades will help in that regard.
We've got one that allows you to roll a different number of attack dice based on the SP cost of 1 upgrade on the target ship, the maximum of 4. So if you're normally throwing 2, you can toss this guy out the airlock to roll up to 4 dice.
If it didn't say max of 4, that would have been an amazing card, especially because it's one use, unique card.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seriously, what's the worst you can do? Go vol it so you get to use him twice? I mean, there wouldn't have been a lot of breaking with that card if he had been not max 4. Even if he's max 6, like, that would have been playable not on the Halik Raider, but on something, even on, like, the bigger Kazon ships.
Yeah. One of the great things that this ship pack adds is the aft torpedo launcher. It's a 4 attack, range 2 to 3 torpedo. Usual, requires a target lock, 3 time tokens. You may only fire this weapon at a ship that is not in your forward firing arc. Granted, it's got a 180 forward arc on this ship and similar, but you can now fire at the other directions. And this one has a higher attack than the Raiders itself. Double, in fact.
Well, and this is a card, and some people will take me to the cleaners over this. Forget about it on Kazon. This can go on anything you want it to go on.
It's a 3 cost, 4 attack torpedo that's 4 cost out of faction. You can throw it under Quark or something similar. You've got options with this puppy.
I'll take this on my Romulan ships.
It's one of the better torpedoes in the game.
I'll take this on the Zendis, and you'll see why. Right now, I'm one of the only people who's allowed to say that, but...
Great on a con ship if you're playing Penalty Pure.
Yeah.
It's an all-around good card. If you're ever going to use torpedoes, this is one of the few you're actually going to use.
Yeah. You know, the Phoenix had that fire a torpedo not in your forward or rear arc, but it was so restricted and cost you so many points for not a Federation ship that it was basically unplayable. This card is actually really playable.
Now, you know where I see this card getting a lot of use in a non-pure environment? On the USS Enterprise E, you may fire a torpedo at an enemy ship without needing a target lock. If you do so, you take an Ox Power token, but it's way cheaper than dorsals, and you get up to range 3. Granted, you drop from 5 attack down to 4, and you've got the time token factor, but you can always put multiples on the ship. But it's almost half the cost. You know, instead of 6, you're down to 4. If you got any weapons discount options, you throw on Fleet Captain in the meantime to drop it down a little bit, you're covering your costs. You've got a really wicked 360 effect going on.
I see your Enterprise E, and I raise you a Delta Flyer.
Oh yes, it'll fit on there quite nicely. But the reason why I was saying the E is you don't need to worry about the target locks against cloakers.
I do understand that. This is almost what the Delta Flyer was made for.
Oh, I see it.
Because now you've got range 3 on a shuttle.
Mm-hmm.
Which is quite useful.
Yeah. Some people are interpreting the shuttle rules and with that to say that nothing can grant it the ability to fire over range 2. So that's more of an interpretation thing. I don't know what Worf would say about that. But basically, the way the game has ruled is if a card says it can happen, it can happen. If a card says it can't happen, it can't happen. So it's down to the cards.
I give you Galler-class phaser banks from the Dominion fighters that grant it range 3.
Exactly.
So...
just put that one to rest, folks.
Yeah, my ruling is if the card gives it range 3, that would give it range 3 until otherwise spoken.
Right, because the torpedoes with the Delta Flyer specifically say if on a shuttlecraft it's reduced range.
Though I don't always give the designers a lot of credit for playtesting cross-faction and cross-wave.
Yeah, quite often a pack is playtested with itself, or against other ships in the wave itself.
Which may be why the Romulan fighters are slightly less powerful. We'll circle back to that later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anything else in here that catches your fancy? I kind of like variable yield charges.
Yes, because I've always liked the photonics, and getting that extra attack die, I'm always up for that.
Yeah, I mean, 2 points for an extra die is okay.
That's actually pretty standard based on ship stats, so
yeah.
That's more than okay. especially when you're dealing with in-faction here.
And this is a disable, not a discard, so
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. So I think we've reached an overall. On the Halik Raider, this is a good set of options. I have a hard time loving most of the cards here.
Mm-hmm. The Kazon are a hard sell to begin with. So when you're going to be delivering us a small craft that's not going to be a real contender in the grand scheme to begin with, it's got to have some decent upgrades to wet your whistle. And fortunately, it does have those too. So if you're into that, if you want to give those a try, then it's worth going for. But it really depends on your playstyle, how you build, and the rules of your venue.
Yeah, I certainly like the Aft Torpedo Launcher. I think that's a card that will go a long way, and I think if you're not looking at that, it's going to catch you off guard at some point.
Somebody's going to surprise you.
I actually hadn't read that one through because I kind of dismissed the whole pack as and now that I'm really looking at that pack, I'm going, oh, wait a minute, that's better.
And that's why we're doing this, folks.
See? Point proven on ship 1. Beyond that, I mean, the rest of the pack's okay. That the named ship, I think, has some use. You've got to figure it out. You've got to figure out if that suits your play style.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to work for everyone? Absolutely not. Is it going to work for someone out there? Yeah, sure.
Well, one thing is it's a great ship for new players just learning the game, playing in a balanced arena against light ships. So it's something light, something maneuverable. It's something to get them rolling with.
Sure, it's something, it gets the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that does that gets people involved, gets you started and going, okay, I'm starting to see what this does. I've got an idea for what's going on here, and it starts to make sense. So for me, I'm buying one, partially because I'm a completionist, but I genuinely do see the use for some of these cards. Now, if I'm on a budget at all, this is one that I'm skipping. If I'm not the main Star Trek Attack Wing guy who reviews everything, I'm probably giving this a pass.
Agreed.
If you really find yourself in a place where you really want that Aft Torpedo Launcher, oh, I have such a hard time saying that buying a pack for one card is worth it, but then I have multiple Pratises just because of Cloaked Minds.
But those are game changers, so that's a little different. But
I don't
then again,
know.
this is for 2 cards.
Aft Torpedo Launcher might be that valuable to some people, to some
Yeah, well, there's
builds.
the Aft Torpedo Launcher and the variable charges.
That's if you're playing photonic charges, though.
Granted, like if you're playing Kazon already, then that's a second card that's worthy.
Yeah.
But for everyone else, the Aft Torpedo Launcher is something you're going to have to think on. It may very well be enough.
I think this is another pack that gets Kazon close to being a viable fleet. I still think they're another expansion away. They need another big carrier. I know they have 3, but they need a 4th banana boat.
Or another similar ship class, if there is such a thing. I haven't gone that far. But, in the words of Maxwell Smart, Agent 86, missed it by that much.
Oh, I love Get Smart.
Shall we roll on to the Scorpion fighters?
Sure.
So, we've got Scorpion 4, Romulan Fighter Squadron, cost 24, attack 4, hull 1, shields 1, 5 tokens for the unique, 4 for the unnamed, forward 90-degree arc, with evasive and lock.
Pretty standard for fighters.
Its ability says, if you attack during a round in which you performed a come-about maneuver, during the modified attack dice step, you may re-roll all your blank results. Not bad.
Yeah, now that's a 2 come about white, a 3 come about red, which makes them about as maneuverable as the Hidekis. I believe the Hidekis had 1 come about that was white and 1 that was red. I know the Fed has 1 come about white, 2 come about white. So, is it nice to be able to pull those come abouts and get some extra quality? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the Hideki had a 2 red come about, and that's it.
Okay.
Hyper maneuverable. It has lots of white hard 1 and 2 hard turns, 3 banks, and 4 straight.
Okay. So I'd say in some ways these are more maneuverable than the Hidekis, and in some ways they're less.
More tightly maneuverable, but not as engaging. They're going to have a hard time keeping up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the lack of a 4 straight because you can do a 3 bank and then the opposite 3 bank, and that's essentially doing 2 4 straights. Now, granted, you end up doing different arcs. You end up aside, but...
Yeah, but with that 2 come about and the 2 hard turn whites, you got some options.
You do need to practice flying it.
Yes.
And I practiced flying Fed fighters that way enough that I was pretty good with it, and I knew how to react to the lack of a 4 straight, and it didn't bother me at all.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to get used to doing 3 banks and setting up not directly ahead. You set up on a slight angle, and then it works out for you.
Exactly.
Your opponent starts going, wait a minute, 3 banks? What are you doing? So you throw in a little bit of confusion, and it does work out. Yeah, credit to Will Sanchez for a little bit of help with that setup, too. I'm going to give credit where it's due. So yeah, Scorpion 4, I cringed when I saw 4 attack. That was the one thing that made me go, so close.
Yeah, because it's not even a contender with the 6 and 5 of the Dominion and the Federation fighters.
Well, and the reason the Fed fighters work is because they have the built-in extra hit if they're attacking somebody who has hull damage.
Right.
Yes, this gets a built-in reroll. So you're evading when you do come about. I mean, that's great, but you're target locking every other round. That ability is only going to kick like 2 or 3 times a game if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And re-rolling 2 dice, which is functionally what's going to happen by the time you get shot at, isn't really worth anything.
It's getting maybe 1 hit, and then they get to roll all their defense dice, which it's really easy to evade 1 or 2 hits for most ships.
I mean, unless you're Borg and you're rolling no defense dice, but then you have enough durability, it doesn't matter. So
even the large Fed ships that only get 1, maybe 2 defense dice, they're usually tacking on extra defense or other shenanigans. So
these days,
yeah.
If these fighters started at skill 8, then maybe you can justify the lower attack. Just because they'd have a chance to get that first attack in a round. And then you go, okay, well, that's why you've got 4.
Yeah, like if it's cloaked, then it would attack at skill 10.
Sure, I could see that. I mean, that's something we've yet to see from Romulans, and maybe that's an avenue they could explore. Now, speaking of cloak, they do get an upgrade where they can cloak.
Indeed, cloaked fighters.
Which we did call.
It was a given. And that card says, add the cloak action to your action bar, so it still costs an action to use it. While your squadron is cloaked, you cannot perform a maneuver with a speed greater than 1. Ouch. This upgrade may only be purchased for a Scorpion-class attack squadron. Sorry, folks, no Dominion or Federation use.
Okay, I'm going to rant for a minute. Limiting this to 3 moves is terrible. If this ship had all 6 1 moves, that includes the come about.
Yep.
It would have been great. If it even had 1 hard turns, it would have been good.
Yes.
If they had even said 1 or 2 moves, that would have limited some of the move options, and it would have kept it playable. If they had said only green moves and made the 2 banks also green so that there's 6 options, that would have made it playable. As it is, they made it worthless.
Absolutely. And it costs you 4 points for an upgrade that cripples you. It hinders you. It doesn't help you. And no rant on this would be complete without moving on to the next part, hidden formation. Add the sensor echo action to your action bar. When performing a sensor echo action, you may only use a 1 straight maneuver template. If your squadron is cloaked, after performing the echo action, you may discard this card to immediately perform another sensor echo as a free action. And if you do so, you take an Ox token. So, cloaked fighters cost 4 points. Hidden Formation costs 5. That's 9 points, basically just to add a Crippled Cloak and Crippled Echo action to the ships. Ouch.
Anybody wanting to do that?
Any hands? Any hands? I don't need to be able to see you. I know this is an audio podcast. I know that there's none up there.
Wait, I see one. I know you're joking. Put it down. You're the same person that thinks that shield upgrade that came on the Enterprise E is a good idea. No, that's just an evade action. Yeah, cloaked fighters were such a cool concept.
It could even justify the lesser attack.
It could have.
Yeah.
It
It
really
gives them some
could
added
have.
durability, some staying power.
Mm-hmm. It
But
didn't.
not so.
All right, now for the card we actually like, or at least I actually like,
Me too.
Focus Strike. Now it is 5 points, but if you damage an opposing ship's hull with a crit, you can discard this card to draw 3 cards instead of 1 and choose which one to give them. So that whole segment we did on worst crits, now it's relevant.
Stunned helmsman, anyone?
Oh, direct hit. I mean, you figure out what's worse for them right now.
Oh, exactly. You've got stunned helmsman and direct hit. And depending on the situation, maybe you want to throw something it'll drop their captain skill down to 0.
Or ignore their captain text, or give them an auxiliary power token.
Yeah, you can read the situation, and based on the 3 choices you're given, odds are one of them is going to fit the situation.
Yeah, it really is a card that gives you some nice options. Now, granted, it's 5 points, but we're moving into an era of 90-point fleet builds. If you're creating a list, maybe you're building a 50-40 list, and you're trying to build 40-point fighters. This is not a bad way to spend 5 points.
Absolutely not. It's definitely a worthy consideration.
Granted, maybe you want to take this cross-faction, make it 6 points on your Dominion or Fed fighters. I think that might be a better use for this card.
Yeah, more damage dice, because as many of you know, and some of you may not know, you can't use many of the boost your friendly ship cards on squadron fighters. They don't count as ships in those unique situations. So you're not going to be using things like Denatra and Hayes and that to boost the attack of the Scorpion fighters. That's
Right.
really unfortunate, because this would really take strong advantage of that. So that's why the Focus Strike would be potentially better used on the fighters that already have more dice to make use of,
Yeah.
increasing the chance of getting that crit damage.
There's some potential with that card.
Mm-hmm.
So, overall, I think I know what you're going to say, but I'll start. If you're a competitive player, and you already have Dominion and Fed attack squadrons, there's really nothing here that you have to have.
That's right.
You would be perfectly fine walking away from this and not getting anything. Now, I will say, the model is amazing, but models shouldn't be the only reason you buy a pack.
Yeah, like the ships themselves, it's just a matte black plastic, and the window is painted glossy black. That's it. But the detail on this model is excellent. It really captures the ship from the movie Nemesis. And I loved the look of it there, and I'm really glad to have it, at least as a toy. So that's the main reason why I ended up buying it, even knowing what was in the pack.
Yeah, I will say, if you buy it, Focus Strike and Torpedo Strike are not the most useless cards.
Not at all. They're worthy consideration, depending on how you choose to fly your other fighters. But overall, is the Scorpion 4 squadron going to be something you're likely to fly? Probably not. But I would love to see someone come up with a viable build that makes really good use of this. So that's a challenge I put out to you. Convince me.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it, but I'd be happy to be proven wrong.
Exactly. Like, there are so many things in gaming, especially customizable games like this, where cards that might otherwise seem useless end up coming back and wowing us. So if there's something that can be made of this, I'd love to see it. Like David said, we don't expect it, but hey, if there's a Will Riker, there's a way.
Hey, speaking of Will Riker, we've got the Hathaway.
Hey-o!
So, /line of 3143. And when I see 3 attack dice, I'm going, oh, how many weapon slots does it have? Just 1, but that means you can put Type 8 or upgraded phasers on it and get it to 4 attack dice. So
it does have 2 crew slots, so you can always throw B'Elanna on there.
Yes, or Sakona, if you go that route.
Yeah.
So that gets you your second weapon either way.
So Type 8's and upgrades, you got 5 attacks, so it's right up there getting close to the Prometheus and the Enterprise E.
System upgrade, and now you've got that extra shield, and yeah, all those things you want to do to make this crazy.
5144 already. You still got a crew slot and 2 techs.
Well, just 1 tech, because system upgrade is a tech slot. But yeah, that's room to work with. But yeah, the named ability here, during the activation phase, you may perform a second action from your action bar as a free action. If you do so, place an auxiliary power token beside your ship. The way I interpret that is not that you have to do your first action from your action bar. It's do whatever action in the world you want. Fleet action, captain action, crew action, and then do a second action that can only be on your action bar.
Right, because normally you get a ship action, and then you can do it as either something from your action bar or on any of your captain's upgrades or whatnot. Now this one says a second action. It's just purely their choice of words. Not forcing an order choice, but yeah, just saying that you have to make sure that it's from your action bar.
Yeah, it's basically to make it so that you can't do a crew that disables and then re-enable.
Right.
It's to prevent some of those shenanigans. It's so you don't have your own built-in Martok.
And the other thinking behind it is you're going to take an Aux power token, so it can't really be your first action, right? Otherwise, if this is your first action, you don't get a second action.
It could if you really want to play it that way. But,
there's ways, power grids and such, Scotty.
Yeah.
But just the general theme of the card.
Yeah, it's basically, hey, you're using extra power to do something else from your ship.
Exactly. Squeeze a little bit more juice out of those engines, out of your people, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So we get another copy of William Riker.
This one's a goodie.
Yeah, we can have the conversation why we're getting so many Rikers another day. But Red Maneuvers did a great podcast on why they think we're getting so many versions of Riker and Worf and Picard and so on. And I actually agree with what they're saying.
Can I just say one thing, though?
Yeah.
Where is Thomas Riker? Where is our Maquis Riker that commanded the Defiant when he commandeered it? Stole. Ooh, maybe another way to steal someone's ship? Anyway.
Maquis hijackers?
It's goatee.
I would enjoy that card.
Yes. He's like the non-mirror evil goatee version of one of our good Federation guys.
Yeah.
He peels the sides off, and he's just got the goatee. But then again, we could always get the TNG version of him as well, not necessarily just the DS9. So that's at least 2 more Rikers we can get. But they'd be Thomas.
I think they could put that on the Valiant.
Just given the Defiant class association.
Right.
Here's hoping. Fingers crossed.
I think the Valiant's going to do a lot to fix the Defiant class.
Here's hoping.
I mean, they can't do much with the base stats, but they can do a lot with cards. But yeah, this Riker, skill 7, talent slot 4 points. When attacking a ship with a larger hull value than your ship, gain an extra attack die.
Nice.
When defending against a ship with a larger hull value than your ship, roll an extra defense die.
Delta Flyer Captain.
Yep. Don't quite staple them together, but, maybe store them together.
Hey, I've already flown them together twice last week. They rocked. I was throwing 7 and 8 dice repeatedly with the Delta Flyer. No need to dock. No. And I did fly it with Voyager. I had that synergy going, so it was good times.
Now all you need is Admiral Worf giving the Delta Flyer an extra attack.
Oh, yeah.
I actually have a build set up to do that, and it's quite scary. Unfortunately, now that I've said that, I have to come up with something different. Sigh. The hazards of doing a podcast. Everyone knows your tips and tricks. But yes, this Riker is great, and it further helps small hull ships.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than detailing every single card in this pack, what sticks out for you as intriguing?
Well, Worf, I think, is the big winner on this ship. I'm really thinking Worf is going to clinch it here. And he's a 5-point crew that says, when defending, you may disable this card. If you do so, the attacking ship rolls 1 fewer attack die and cannot spend battle stations or target lock tokens to modify the attack roll. And your ship may roll its full defense die in spite of the presence of any scan tokens beside the attacking ship. Wow.
Yeah.
Basically, you just cripple any Uber shot that they've got planned for you.
Yeah, you definitely have to pick your moment with Worf.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do it right, I agree. He can be a nice insurance policy.
Mm-hmm. And if you're running like a Phlox Beverly Crusher combo with him to keep him going, that can work. But remember, it is only 1 attack per turn.
True.
But hey, even once is epic.
Yes.
Because most fleets have either an even spread or 1 killer attack move. And if you can use this for their big one, then the rest should be manageable.
Yeah.
At least if you built your fleet properly.
Mm-hmm. Especially in these 50-40 days, run a shuttle and make it your one big ship that you dock together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you. For me, my big winner is Warp Jump.
Oh, yeah.
That's the 5-point tech. At the start of the combat phase, before any attacks have been made, you may discard this card to remove your ship from the play area, and then at the end of combat phase, after all other ships have attacked, place your ship anywhere in the play area, not within range 1 to 3 of any other ship, and all tokens that were beside your ship are removed. You cannot attack during the round in which you use this ability.
Now, it says all tokens that were beside your ship are removed. That would seem to include auxiliary power tokens unless ruled otherwise.
I am saying that at this moment, only because every other card that jumps you out says accept auxiliary power tokens. Now, granted, all those other cards were actions, but you still have to assume that you have a card that has some way to do an action with an auxiliary power token. I know that the Tiny Price can do that as its named ability, but you future-proof for a card that eventually says, while you have an auxiliary power token beside your ship, do an action.
Mm-hmm.
Either they omitted it, in which case they'll fix it, or it's intentional, in which case have at it. And I say, enhanced hull plating much?
Mm-hmm. The nice thing about this is I've actually used it already. It's a great conditional. So like you can hang in there, you can go, okay, I'm good. Whoops, no, I'm not gonna be able to handle this. So you bug out, you pop back in, and you take another run at it. This is something that really would have been a nice touch if included on the Interceptor 8 in the blind pack.
Yeah.
This would have made that ship a lot juicier.
It really would have. This is a card. Now, remember that the combat phase happens even if nobody can shoot at each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do this turn 1, jump out, come in from their flank, and now you're behind them.
Yeah.
You have to be careful about that whole range 3 thing, especially if they spread out. You don't want to do that. But
so this is the kind of thing if you're wanting to get behind them, you want to put this on a high captain skill ship so you've given them time to move first. And hopefully they're not just creeping along at their 1 speed because they're priming their cloaks or something. But even if you come at them from the side, if you put it on a ship that's got some reasonable maneuverability and some speed, you'll do just fine. With Federation, there's so many cool options when it comes to tech upgrades that it can be hard to decide, and a lot of it is conditional. So if you have a card like Wesley Crusher that allows you to throw 3 down, you can actually decide later in the game, say, okay, I need this one. You're not going to have that, oh, I should have brought this, because you can. And the nice thing is, it doesn't even take up a tech slot.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at cards like Bioneural Circuitry, Enhanced Hull Plating, High Energy Sensor Sweep, Multi-Adaptive Shields, Regenerative Shielding, Tachyon Detection Grid, Tactical Prototype, Transwarp Drive, Unimatrix Shielding, Warp Jump. These are all cards that cost 4, 5, or 6. Even the Doctor costs 3. Now, that's probably not the best use, but might be a nice one-time use. It gives you things to pull in and say, hey, here you go.
And if we really want to be silly, that's one way to get some tech on board the Halik Raider with Surat.
Sure.
Not that you would, but hey.
So for me, Hathaway's a definite buy. Sounds like you've already bought one.
Oh, yeah.
Any reason for you to buy more than one of this pack?
This ship, given that its majority of its value is with unique cards, probably not, but that warp jump might be like an alternative to something like Cheat Death.
Yeah.
But it is a 5-point upgrade discard, so it's iffy. And it does eat up that valuable Federation tech slot.
It does. That is the one thing I will consider, is Warp Jump is a good generic card.
Yes.
And Navigational Station isn't a bad generic card as well. And Constellation models look pretty cool.
Yeah.
The generic isn't bad. 3142 for 20 points, 180 firing arc.
4 hull. It can support shuttles. It can support fighters.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Just slightly different arrangement with stuff. I don't know. I'd say this. I don't say that you have to buy a second. Like, nothing jumps up and says, ooh, buy a second.
Yeah, it's a must-buy one for Fed players and some other non-Fed. But for a duplicate buy, yeah, it's really going to have to leave that up to you. It's not something that we can out and out say you must have more than one.
Yeah, I'd say for unlimited players, probably a must-buy because of Riker, especially if you're messing around with Delta Flyer builds or cards that utilize those Delta Flyer upgrades. Because who doesn't love an extra attack or defense die? And Warp Jump is just a cool alternative. If you've ever experimented with Picard Maneuver, Warp Jump is just cool as well.
Yes. That'd be a handy second turn use if your ship needs to bug out after the fact.
Well, see, I'm picturing with Warp Jump, your ship gets target locked by 2 or 3 opponents, you jump out, and now all of a sudden, you're not target locked anymore.
Exactly, and they just wasted their actions on you.
Yeah, there's some good potential here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say that every single thing here is a must-have, but you're certainly not going to regret most of the cards in this pack. So, buy order, Hathaway,
must.
Halik Raider, then Scorpion Fighters. That's my buy order, at least.
Yeah, I would put it the other way around, Hathaway, Scorpions, Halik, but it's pretty much saying that the Halik and the Scorpion 4 are both not really worth the buy. It's situational and personal. Like, I bought them because I'm a Romulan fan, so I've got the Scorpion Fighters. I passed on the Halik Raider because I'm not huge on the smaller Kazon. I love the big ships, though. But I'm a Romulan fan, I wanted the model, and hey, that was enough for me.
I value 360 torpedoes more than I value a third-rate fighter.
Agreed. I will give you that.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm buying all of them. But yeah. So yeah, that is Wave 20. Probably the most lackluster wave of recent note, which is a little disappointing. But I still think we found some decent uses, some decent cards in it. It's not like it's all bad.
We found the silver lining to the Kazon ship. That's something that many people probably didn't think could be found.
I didn't going in.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. This is why we do this. It's good for everybody. We learn. It gives me reason to actually own it. So
there you go.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I might pick it up down the road once I play around some more.
Yeah. So on that note, we're going to toss it over to our contributors. We have Griffin up first, and he is going to talk about Nemesis done right. So that is the mission that came with the Vrax expansion.
Hi, I'm Dave Griffin. Today we're going to discuss the Battle in the Basin Rift mission. Note that there is another Basin Rift mission which is earlier than this and which I don't think was all that good. I think this was a much better rendition. This one came with the IRW Vrax and recreates Star Trek Nemesis, better than the previous one. The forces are the Romulan player, which is really Romulan Federation, and the enemy player. Now, the Romulan player is 120 points, including at least 2 Romulan ships and at least 1 Federation ship. And among the Romulan ships, there has to be at least 1 Valdor-class ship. And the enemy player has 1 and only 1 ship, and surprisingly, they don't specify that it be the Scimitar. And there's something of a problem if you make it the Scimitar. So let me go over both options here. On the one hand, you can take a non-Scimitar ship, like, say, a Dominion battlecruiser, add the cloak if it's not present, give it advanced cloaking built in. When it's sensor echoing, allow it to do a 1, 2, or 3. Build it in a Thaleron weapon, free of charge, and reroll 1 blank result whenever you attack, and get 1 additional free action. Now, that's a really good Scimitar, effectively a lot better than the actual Scimitar. I would say if you do a Scimitar, it's already got the cloak built in. It already has advanced cloaking built in. You just allow it to sensor echo up to 3, allow it to have its Thaleron weapon free, give it its 1 blank reroll and its 1 additional free action. And don't let it take the built-in Thaleron and a regular Thaleron. I think that would be a little bit overpowered. Now, the objective is simple. On both sides, it's merely destroy the other folks' ships. So no complicated mission objectives this time. Just go and destroy the enemy. Now, this is a dreadnought versus the rest sort of missions, when that means all the things you think it means. You know, dreadnoughts tend to be vulnerable from being taken out. They can only fire at 1 opponent at a time and so on. So keep that in mind. The tactics, I would say, on the Federation Romulan side, on the Romulan side, you probably want the Valdor rather than the Vrax. I think it has a better perk for this, the green maneuver extra attack die. I wouldn't try taking 2 Valdors or 2 Valdor classes, although you could do that. But I would recommend the Valdor and a support ship like the Vo, maybe Mirak on the Valdor, maybe Advanced Cloak on the Valdor, possibly a tactical officer. Another thing I think might be really useful is Mendek and Dinatra on the Vo, and possibly also a cloaked mine, because cloaked vessels don't hate anything more than cloaked mines. If you could get 2 on there, that would be even better. But 1 cloaked mine will help you control the Scimitar's actions a little bit. Of course, a Scimitar could conceivably have a cloaked mine or 2 itself. On the Federation side of that Federation Romulan pact, I tend to favor the Prometheus these days because of its extra maneuvering option in its action. I like the Indy-Fed Fleet Captain too, because if the Romulans pick a very high captain skill, they may be moving last. And if they do, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit more movement on your side. And frankly, even if you do manage to move last, having more movement on your side is also useful. It wouldn't hurt to have Picard along, but if the Romulans want to badly enough, they can overpower the captain skill of even Picard. And I definitely recommend the dorsal phaser array. One other option that might be good on the Federation ship would be Deanna Troi. And the reason why is because the Scimitar or the enemy ship is going to be able to stay cloaked, which means no target lock, which means the Valdor is going to have a heck of a time shooting at it. You really need to get that cloak to red, and you need some kind of way to do it. Deanna Troi is one possible way. Cheat death isn't also a bad idea for the Fed, since if it takes the Indy-Fed Fleet Captain, it gets the cheat death free. Now on the enemy side, you're going to have every upgrade in the universe, because the options of the scenario allow you to take double upgrades from your upgrade bar. So if you have one tech on your upgrade bar, you get to take 2. If you have 2, you get to take 4, and so on. And that's true for all different kinds of upgrades. And that's the big problem playing the scimitar. On the one hand, the advantage is you've got all these upgrades, but on the other hand, as the disadvantage, you've got all these upgrades. I don't know about you, but when you're looking at a ship with 20 cards, it's kind of hard to play it properly because you're going to forget something. So the more upgrades you have, the more an experienced player you'll need to be, and the more careful you need to be. So here's a few ideas about the sort of things you might take if you take a scimitar. First thing, I think, is captain skill. Captain skill will be highly useful for the scimitar player, because if you don't take captain skill, your opponents are going to outmaneuver you. There's just going to be 3 of them, and it's going to be easier for them to box you in. So if you move last, it would be extremely helpful. The Romulan fleet captain is also a possibility because of the free sensor echo. Combined with your 1, 2, or 3 sensor echo, you can move all around the board, and that can be really useful. Third possibility is interface generators, maybe 2 of them. You're going to have a lot of upgrades on your upgrade bars. Interface generators essentially convert a colossal hit to a single non-critical hit. That's going to be very useful. There's going to be effectively 2 periods of time here, one while the scimitar is cloaked and one while it is uncloaked. So on the time that it's cloaked, having interface generators would be pretty useful. And since you have plenty of points, you might as well bring Varel along as well to cancel an attack. Just remember, you have to cancel it before dice are rolled. Another good option for after you decide that you have to come out of cloak is secondary shields. Secondary shields will let you regenerate shield power, and that will extend your ability to survive once you uncloak. Tactical officer is not a bad idea either, because just like on the Romulan side, tactical officer will let you make maximum use of that target lock. And Romulan helmsman would be very useful for the scimitar, or for any Romulan ship, because it allows you to do a red turnabout and then not take the aux token. So I would say that this is a 4-star mission. I like it a lot. It's pretty much a straight combat mission. It's very dependent on how good the bills are on both sides, very dependent on how good a maneuverer you are. It's very easy to lose this scenario by maneuvering badly and bumping into the enemy and losing your actions and so on. It's questionable also which of the 3 ships the scimitar should go for first. In case the Romulan player takes the Valdor and the Vo and, say, the Prometheus, who do you shoot at first? On the one hand, if you shoot at Natasha, that'll be a big kink out of your enemy, but the Vo is a hard target. If you go after the Valdor, then the problem you have is if they've got somebody like Mirak in command, it can regenerate, so you're going to have to keep at the Valdor. And if you do that, then the Prometheus is going to be shooting at you steady. And if the Prometheus manages to flip your cloak, then both ships are going to do a fair amount of damage to you. So so for the scimitar, I would almost go for the Prometheus first. The other 2 ships are going to be hard target, and the Prometheus, or the equivalent, the Federation ship, is likely to be a heavy damage hitter, but not as well protected, because it probably doesn't have the points. So that's what I would recommend. Well, have a good time with this scenario. Like I said, I think it's 4 stars. I think it's definitely worth playing. And remember, too, that whoever plays the scimitar should probably be the more experienced player, because it's complicated keeping that many cards in your mind while you're trying to play. So you might as well let the best equipped person do that. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.
Welcome to the Ready Room. My name's Daniel, and I'll be your host for this segment of the show. Now, I'm a new contributor to Warp Core Breach, and this will be a once-a-month segment talking about strategies to the events that WizKids puts out for us. Now, how I'll do things is, first I'll give you a summary of the rules. Then, I'll add in a few notes that I have. After that, I'll give you 1 to 2 strategies that I've found. And lastly, give you a few recommendations on what you should and shouldn't do for the event. Now, for most of us, we're maneuvering our way straight out of Balance of Terror and right into the Cold War, which will be our topic for today, Cold War OP1. The event is fairly simple. First, you place a planet in the middle of the board. Each time a ship attacks within range 1 to 2 of the planet, you place a mission token on the planet to a max of 12. When you place that mission token, you roll tack dice. On any combinations of hits or crits, the planet explodes. Now, the planet can also explode when you place all 12 mission tokens onto the planet. When the planet does explode, ships within range 1 of the planet suffer 2 damage, and ships within range 2 of the planet suffer 1 damage. There's also a bonus. Whoever's opponent's ship is closer to the planet when it blows up gains plus 20 fleet points. Now, it's going to take 2 to 3 turns of combat before the planet explodes by mission tokens alone. If you've already been through 2 to 3 turns of combat, your ship's probably damaged fairly well, and when the planet blows up, it's probably going to damage it even more, or potentially destroy it. So you're going to need an insurance policy, and that insurance policy is cheat death. Now, I know cheat death's not what it used to be, but cheat death is really there for that unknown factor that the planet can blow up at any time during the combat phase. Now, you don't only need cheat death. You could take crew or tech that repair your hulls or shields instead. However, you may not repair enough shields or hull, or repair at the right time, and cheat death will be there to save you. Better yet, combine the two, so that way, if you have to use cheat death right after, you could heal your ship. Now, I'd like to apologize in advance because I am not a faction pure player, and most of the lists that I'll make, or our strategies, require you to not be faction pure. However, I will try to incorporate some faction pure lists or strategies for you faction pure players. I've only come up with one strategy for the event, but it may be hard to pull off, and will test your skills. And the strategy is controlling the explosion. Now, for this you'll need cards like Admiral Wharf, Strafing Run, Counterattack, Preemptive Strike, Rebellion, and even Lure and Faked Message, and you'll see why in a moment. Now, the rules specifically say, each time a ship fires within range 1 to 2 of the planet token, you place a mission token on the planet token. This means if you use Admiral Wharf or Strafing Run, you place a mission token for those because those are attacks. Now, with these cards, you can control when the planet blows up by adding attacks or skipping your attack and adding 1 to 2 more the next round. This will help you have your ships in a right position to get out of the explosion and have your opponents in a bad position in the explosion. Keep in mind though, anytime you roll a combination of hits or crits when placing the mission token, the planet automatically explodes. This could spoil the whole plan. However, if you pull this off, it will be rewarding. Now, Lure and Fake Message come in by getting your opponent to set up in a bad position when you have a few more mission tokens left to put on the planet. Now, keep in mind your opponent does not have to attack and can skip their perform attack phase, and you can too. This can be frustrating for you, but that's why you have all these extra attack cards to either add on attacks or fill in attacks for your opponent. Now, if you used all these extra cards for attacks, you probably damaged your opponent fairly well, and if you use Lure or Fake Message to get your opponent in that bad position when the planet blows up, it's just making it better for you. Like I said earlier, this can be hard to pull off, and it will put your skills to the test, and I challenge you to try it. I would not recommend ships with no shields in the event, because when the planet explodes, it goes straight to their hull. Also, I wouldn't recommend cloaking while the planet is still active and can explode any time. What I would recommend for this event are ships with good durability, and even a crew or tech upgrade to help it repair just in case. You have the ships, you have the cards, now make it so. I'll see you next month when we talk about Cold War OP2 on To the Ready Room. End transmission.
And here's Natasha with Dude, It's Just a Game, a perspective on Star Trek Attack Wing from someone who isn't completely obsessed.
Hey everyone, I'm back, and I brought that super serious guy with me, David.
Hey, I have a fun-loving side.
Oh, sure, if you count reciting the first 300 digits of pi by memory fun.
3.1415926.
Dude, it's just a game.
Hey, I was having fun.
Okay, so Pi is not a game, but Star Trek Attack Wing is. And speaking of fun, we've been doing a really fun thing lately. So for those who haven't been obsessively watching our every move, we recently did a fun head-to-head tournament of the reinforcement boosters.
Which you should check out on the Shipyard YouTube page. Absolutely.
So that was a lot of fun, and we did it mostly to kind of showcase the ships and look at the different fun things. And
so, because of playing all those matches, we are quite possibly the foremost leading experts on the reinforcement boosters.
Oh my, seriously, dude, it's just a game. We're not foremost experts. However, we did have a lot of fun, and we are going to start today doing a mini series talking about kind of the top cards and the bottom cards from all 10 boosters. Just out of all the cards that came out, our top and our bottom each week, in no particular order.
Yeah, but don't lie, you're taking your favorite first.
Okay, you know what? Bioship is amazing. It's not my fault that one of the best cards in the whole set came from Bioship.
Yes, fine, but I had you shaking in your invisible boots with the Eldara, and just one hit away and you were toast.
Bioship rocks. Okay.
Is that your new hashtag?
Yes, hashtag Bioship. So, it's no secret, I'm a huge fan of Species, and I'm a huge fan of the Bioships and all they have to offer, and they did not disappoint.
Yeah, I'm sure Freud has something to say about that.
Really? You did?
Yes, really.
Anyways, so kind of the card I'd like to highlight from the Bioship that really just was amazing for me was the Organic Conduits. It's a 1-point card, you discard it, and you can treat a red maneuver as a white maneuver.
Quite a useful card.
It is. Bioship has exactly 3 red maneuvers, and one of them is a 3 come about.
Yeah, I got messed over by that more than once.
No spoilers. But yes, so being able to come about, be behind your opponent, have them in your firing arc, and also have an action, target lock, or use the Bioship Captain ability, which is an action, or whatever other action you might want to take, is fantastic. And it adds a giant level of unpredictability, because you don't necessarily have to use it when you come about, but your opponent doesn't know that. And it just makes your opponent cry a lot. Dave's gonna attest to the crying.
I don't know what you're talking about. My eyes were dry as the Sahara Desert.
You photoshopped the tears out. We all know. Wait, is it photoshopped or video shopped?
Well, there's no such thing as video shopping, so...
I think there is.
No, that's just editing. But, don't give away all my secrets, okay, woman?
So, in terms of top card, if you pull Bioship, you should absolutely take Organic Conduits. Do not underestimate it.
Yeah, I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't do that.
On the other end of the spectrum, cards that probably have a use, but I didn't find particularly enticing in a reinforcement booster setting. I'm going to start with Bajorans, the weapon that comes on the Bajoran ship.
Yeah, good old phaser strike.
It's 5 cost for 4 dice out of your 90-degree firing arc. So you don't get it like out of a rear firing arc. It's not 360. There's not really anything special about it except it's 2 more dice.
Which is doubling your attack dice. Just pointing that out.
Dave disagrees with me a little. And it's extremely situational. You can use an action to make it fire at Captain Skill 10, but that means that you can't add quality to your dice because you've used your action.
Hey, you have built-in rerolls with the captain. I'm not saying that's everything, but it's something.
Right, but it's extremely situational, and it's, for me, one thing I look at when I look at cards that are useful from boosters is if they're going to be useful outside of that booster, and I don't think I'd ever take that card if I had other choices for weapons. Like, we discovered to build Bajoran to 40 points, you have to take everything, but I'm never going to actually fire it, probably. It's situational, and there's too much going on, and I don't really find it worth all of that.
Oh, fair enough. I don't love the card. I think that it is playable in the right set of circumstances, but it's not the be-all, end-all. I still like having 2 extra dice every once in a while. Granted, it is a disable. The ability to fire at skill 10 is nice, but not great. So, it's there.
I'm with you there. I just think that with Bajorans being at a disadvantage to most of the other ships in terms of firepower and in terms of durability, a more powerful weapon would have been nice.
Sure, or something that gave them durability. But I get it. Or even something that let them fire out of a rear arc would have helped with arc dodging even more. But these are the cards that we have, and Phaser Strike is probably the weak link in the Bajoran booster. It's not terrible, but it's not the be-all, end-all.
So that's our first set of great card, not so great card. Again, all of this is subjective. You may completely disagree. You may find a great use for Phaser Strike. If you do, please let me know. I'd like to see that.
And if you somehow don't find Organic Conduit useful, please see a doctor ASAP.
Or a psychiatrist, or, maybe learn how to play the game. Oh, sorry.
Those are her words, not mine, folks. I don't criticize the players.
I'm just kidding. Everyone has different opinions. Some people don't actually agree with me about species. So, to each his own. But that about wraps it up for today. Definitely check out those boosters at your local store and come back next week. We'll talk about some more cards.
So until then, remember that, dude,
it's just a game.
Good evening, and welcome to the Faction Report, the segment that brings you the inside scoop on all the factions. We'll show you how they really work, expose their weaknesses, find innovative combinations, and help you make them work better. And now here's your host, the man who is not Picard, David Walton.
Hi everyone. The last few times on the Faction Report, I've been talking about what each faction does, what their thing is. Now, I'm not going to cover Federation because their thing is everything. That they have enough cards and enough flexibility in faction that they can do pretty much anything they want. What I thought I'd try to tackle is the Borg. And I know for a long time the Borg were the all-conquering, fleet-destroying, OP-winning mega faction that just crushed anything that came near them. And since the Borg nerf, as it's become known, where they lost range 3 on their primary weapons and they lost the ability to move basically in any direction without warning, the Borg seem to have dropped off in terms of the number of people who play them. Certainly at the events I attend, but also I don't hear as many people talking about the Borg. Now, in faction pure play, the Borg were never as strong as all that. And part of the reason that they were never as strong as all that was because they didn't have in-faction access to battle stations. And that meant that even with the greatest efficiency that you could get for them, they were never going to, really take the world on. They were never going to be the greatest faction ever. 6 dice are all very well and good, 7 dice are all very well and 8 dice are all very well and good, but if you've only got target lock, then they would struggle to get the dice efficiency that you would expect. Certainly, a 7 dice attack with target lock is about the same efficiency as a 5 dice attack with both target lock and battle stations, but if you're facing one of the increasingly prevalent permacloak builds, then that kind of dice efficiency is not going to be the greatest. So, what is the Borg's thing since the nerf? What can they do really well? Certainly they've still got very high hull, very high shields, they've got good primary weapon value, no evade to speak of, but as people have said for months now, evade dice are not all that. The thing that the Borg do really well, and what I'm going to talk about briefly today, is ganking. Now, I'm not sure where the term ganking came from, I think it's something to do with gangs, but the Urban Dictionary definition of ganking is to steal or take something that doesn't belong to you. And in terms of attack wing, this means forcing your opponent to disable or discard an upgrade, as well as stealing. Now, stealing, for some of you might be a term that you're not familiar with. Stealing is defined by the WizKids Online Rules Forum, WARF, as steal is a game term used in card text that allows you to take a face-up card from an opponent's ship and redeploy it to your ship, even if your ship does not have unused icons or does not have the correct icons on your ship's upgrade bar. Basically, you get to take from theirs and add to yours, regardless of whether you had the slots to do so or not. The Borg are the masters of this. They have possibly more options for ganking than any other faction, although Dominion have quite a few, and they don't suffer the usual problem that ganking cards suffer, which is that if a ship has shields or if a ship is still cloaked, then you can't gank from it. Now, the Borg have umpteen different options for ganking. The most obvious one is Borg assimilation tubules, or as they've become known on the internet, ASS tubes. And Borg assimilation tubules are range 1 to 2, they go through shields and cloak, they are a steal, which is fantastic, and they allow you to take crew, tech or weapons from your opponent's ship. Do have some downsides though. Whatever they steal comes over disabled. It's an action disable to use the card. It costs drone tokens, and it's 8 squadron points to do so. So my suggestion is that instead of that, you use a combination of 4th of 5 and Goval. Now 4th of 5, range 1 to 2, disables 2 of your enemy shields, and then he can disable any upgrade. It goes through shields and cloak. It's an action discard for 5 points. With Goval that turns into 6 points, but it means you get 2 uses from it. If you're not interested in disabling and you'd rather get them to discard something, I might suggest as an alternative that you go for 2nd of 5, range 1 to 2, discard any upgrade. Now, this might sound like it's not a big deal. There are very few cards in the game that allow you to discard any upgrade. Quite a lot of ganking cards specifically focus on crew. So 2nd of 5, range 1 to 2, discard any upgrade. Goes through cloak and shields as an action discard, but again, when you pair it with Goval, it doesn't cost you very much, or it doesn't cost you as much. And the final thing I'll say on my first post about Borg, my first look at the Borg faction in Faction Pure Play, is Data. Now, Data was Borg for not very long at all. I can't remember the exact time, but it is a very short amount of time. But his Borg faction version allows you to disable captains, which is quite a big deal. Range 1 to 2, it also gives you a free scan, which means it goes quite well on the Queen Vessel Prime, which also has the 2 crew slots you need, 1 for Data, 1 for Goval. It does cost you drone tokens, and it is only a disable of that captain, but it's pretty nice to have as a kind of combo breaker. Use Data, disable the captain that's causing you an issue, then use 2nd of 5, or 3rd of 5, or 4th of 5, or any of the other of 5 cards that do similar things. 3rd of 5 allows you to disable all crew on a ship. Combination of those 2 cards together, dice efficiency is not going to matter as much, because they're not going to have the upgrades to stop you from causing damage just with your basic die roll. So, the Borg. Probably, appropriately enough, the best faction in the game at ganking. Thanks very much for listening. I'm not Picard.
And now it's time for the Warp Core Breach Question of the Week, where we pose your questions to all of the contributors in the hopes that someone will get it right. This week's question: what card are you thankful for?
All right, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, both new and old, we bring you our segment this week of cards we are thankful for in Attack Wing.
Canadian Thanksgiving was a couple weeks ago. American Thanksgiving is a couple weeks in the future. I'm a podcaster, not a calendar. I have 2 cards that I am especially grateful for. So the card that came to mind when I got started was improved deflector screens.
Absolutely.
Now, I know this starts to tread a little bit into the power gaming arena, but backing away from that, really, just a card that says, hey, you can put this on a limited variety of ships, and it helps you survive longer.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a card that helps out these ships that need extra durability. And it does so much. Now, it's a great design in the sense of there's a point where it will go away. It may take a while, but it is set up to not be an infinite card. And I love that. So it's a card that is well designed, does a very necessary job, helped a lot of ships be more playable, but doesn't break the game in the process.
Right. Multi-adaptive shields just requires active shields to function. It just disables it. Well, it doesn't disable, but it deactivates in a sense when your shields are gone. If you get them back, it can come back. With the improved deflector shields, once your last shield is destroyed, it's gone. It's discarded. You cannot get it back.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, there's no way to bring tech back once it's been discarded. Only crew.
Not yet. He says, knowing what's in the grand prize.
Oh.
Spoilers.
Me likey.
Anyways, so that's my first card.
Well, that would certainly be one of my top picks as well. And I have so many favorite cards and so many things in this game that I'm thankful for that this is not a top 3 list or top 2 list or any top list for me. It's just merely the ones that come to mind right now. And one of the ones that I'm very thankful for is the USS Prometheus, because when I'm playing Federation, it is a fantastic framework for just about any build. It's got the 2 tech slots, 2 weapon slots, 2 crew slots, so it's open to do just about anything. It's got excellent stats. It's a 5-1-4-5. Some people don't think it's got that great a maneuverability. I disagree. It's got great green 1s and 2s. It's got hard 3s. It can go right up to 6 white. Most ships in this game are limited to speed 4. This one can go 5 and 6 white. So none of that red stuff getting in the way. Except if you want to go reverse. It does have a red reverse 1. So it's got a lot of potential. So if you need to do a come about, it's just 2 hard turns. Takes a couple turns. But it's got a built-in ability to go an additional 1 or 2 straight if you did a straight maneuver. It's also a great framework for Admiral Forrest. So many other options. It's the perfect skeleton for a Federation build for me. Plus, it's a gorgeous ship, so it doesn't hurt.
I do like the Prometheus. I don't think that I've actually taken it out in a tournament yet. I've played it in a casual game, but I need to take it into a tournament.
Yes, you do.
We'll see what Temporal Cold War 1 has in store. But I do like all the framework. It is a solid body of work there.
There's very little it can't do, especially with all the options the Federation have.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of options, the other card I'm thankful for speaks to the other side of me. I'm not typically a Romulan player, but when I am, I love Admiral Mendak.
Oh, yes.
The ability to give things battle stations that don't normally have battle stations is such a blessing to so many ships. And the Romulans are better because of it. The Scimitar especially is better because of it. And I know people don't want to hear it, but the Borg are better because of it.
Yeah, because even though the card says this card may only be purchased for a Romulan ship, that doesn't mean that you can't use its ability to grant battle stations to another non-Romulan ship in your fleet.
Or even bioships.
Agreed.
Or Klingons. You know, there's a lot of fun potentials you can do with Mendak. I mostly seen it done with just Romulans, and it works quite well just with Romulans.
Agreed.
But mixing it up a bit, it works quite well too. So is there any other cards in particular that you're thankful for, Nick?
Well, cards plural. They're coming up for retirement for those of you that follow that, but I am ever so grateful for the fleet captains.
Yes.
Those resources are amazing.
Where would we be without free elite talents and some extra options, cheaper cards, and extra movement?
Yeah, like you get the Independent Fed gives you an extra movement. The actual Fed gives you an enabling of one of your upgrades, which can be extremely valuable, especially with multi-card combos. The other independent sides granting you double of a particular slot, plus a discount for all of those slot types in your whole fleet. It's epic. It's like, you can't go wrong with those. That's why they're arguably one of the best resources in the game. And since the flagships have been retired, fleet captains have seen a lot more play in many venues.
Yeah, I know that I've been playing fleet captains almost exclusively. Every once in a while, Officer Exchange Program gets in there, but yeah, January 1st is going to be a cold, dark day. As for me, I don't actually have a third picked out, but I could be grateful for so many cards, and it's hard to narrow anything down. What I will say is that I am grateful that there is no longer just one super strategy in the game, that there are seemingly a myriad of options. I was talking earlier today with Joseph, and he was talking about how it seems really hard to make up a build that can account for everything that your opponent could throw at you.
Yeah, now that the Picard Ducat spheres are pretty much off the table for the most part, there hasn't really been one unifying build that dominates all. And that's really what we wanted from the game.
Yeah, I mean, you could still take Picard Ducat spheres in a 90 build. But they're pretty naked, and
without the original movement and that 3-range firing at 360, they're just not what they used to be.
No.
Not what they once were.
And that makes them really tough to do a lot of good work. So so I'm grateful for options, and I'm grateful for diversity in this game. You know, maybe it's really 4 archetypes and then it's variations of a theme. But I'll take that.
It's better than only one.
Because what I've come down to realizing is it's no longer, okay, here's what I want to do, how do I go about it? It's, I have to decide what I want to do. And then it's, I've got 5 different ways to accomplish it, so what's the best way to do it?
Exactly. And even when you're pairing up against other things, one of those 5 might work great with one other companion or support ship or whatever, but then you change that up and then you might have to go with a different one. So the one best isn't the one best in all situations. So it further diversifies the game.
Right. And sometimes you're going to be in a situation where you're like, well, I don't necessarily want to have one big ship because then that's the target. And I don't want to get into super strategic things right here, but I'll wrap it up by saying, for me, I love all the variety that exists that creates competitive, and if not competitive, interesting games, and there is so much parity in the game right now.
Vive l'attaque wing!
So on that note, we will toss it over to our contributors and hear the things that they are thankful for, because it is always good to share thanks. Ooh, turkey, shoot him. It's wabbit season. Oh no, duck season.
Hello everybody, Innkeeper here from the Wandering Inn. What card am I most thankful for? There is a lot of cards in here that I'd be disappointed if they suddenly disappeared from the game or were FAQ'd not to be allowed. However, the one that really stands out in mind is Phlox. A card that undisables every crew member on the ship by disabling himself. There's 2 cards that come to mind that are like this. There's probably several others. The EMH Doctor. However, his is an action. Phlox is during the activation phase, so you don't need to waste an action to use Phlox. While the Doctor, you do need to waste an action to clear off all the disabled crew members. Yes, he can be a tech or a crew upgrade, but that's a bit consuming of actions, especially when I want to do a target lock battle stations on my ship. So that's out of the question. And there's Dr. McCoy, who removes 2 disables, and he's 2 points. Phlox is also 2 points. So if I want to make a really synergizing build where I can disable like 2, 3, 4 people in a turn, and then next turn just go, they're all undisabled because of Phlox. McCoy versus Phlox, they're 2 points each, and Phlox is just during the activation phase, so you don't need to waste an action at all. So that is why I pick it for some really outrageous builds. Now, because of this, I keep Beverly Crusher nearby, because in case somebody gets the smart idea of trying to destroy my cheap little 2-point doctor, I can just simply go, nope, Beverly Crusher's gone. That way my synergizing build doesn't get disrupted in any way, shape, or form. Because, superior intellect or 205, taking Phlox out of the picture when I'm planning on disabling 3, 4 crew members a turn and just keep re-enabling them over and over again, losing him would kind of be bone-crushing. So I guess that's 2 picks right there. But primarily, Dr. Phlox.
Hi everyone. So, the card I am thankful that it's in the game. Probably the interface generator. I like cloakers. I like making cloakers work, and the unfortunate thing with cloakers is every now and again someone's going to roll 6 attack dice and get 6 crits. Okay, it's not very often. I think it's a less than 0.01% chance of that happening. But it would be a terrible thing, especially when you're running a cloak fleet and you're relying on cloak to stop your 2-hull ship from dying. And for those reasons, interface generators are wonderful, because they make cloaking viable. They make it okay to cloak. When you're not able to maneuver out of your opponent's firing arc using Sensor Echo, you know you've got an interface generator in your back pocket just to whack out and go, do you know what? I'm going to take 1 damage this turn. So you're going to have to fire at me again if you want to kill me. And I'm really thankful that card is in there, because it makes the game more interesting. It gives people more variety. I don't think that cloak fleets or permacloak fleets would be anywhere near as enjoyable to play if we didn't have interface generator. So that's my favourite card, and I'm not Picard.
Hey guys, this is Daniel from To the Ready Room, and the card that I am most thankful for would have to be Quark, the crew member, because most of the time I do not have that extra tech slot or weapon slot to put that upgrade on, and I do have that extra crew slot, and Quark just lets me get that tech or weapon cheaper, and I don't need a slot, so it'll have to be Quark.
Hi, this is Dave Griffin, and the card that I would pick is the Dorsal Phaser Array. Now, I'm a Federation player, and I think that the standard arcs they put on Federation ships are pretty inaccurate, so in the thematic sense, I'm glad to have the Dorsal Phaser Array to put things to rights. But what I particularly like about this card is the free maneuvering style of play it lets you do on the Federation side. You can have all kinds of additional options that you wouldn't have otherwise to rocket past your enemy or to turn to the right or left and put them out of their firing arc but still get your own dorsal shot. So this has really done more than any other card to promoting the kind of play that I like. Thanks a lot.
Hey everyone, it's Natasha from Dude, It's Just a Game. The card that I'd have to say I'm most thankful for is probably going to be the 5-cost Montgomery Scott. He's a Federation crew. And the reason that I'm thankful for him is because he's a large part of the reason I'm still in the game. David helped me to build him into a Voyager build early on, and probably my second tournament ever. I did pretty well with him. Comboed him with a couple different cards, but he was the card that really helped me to start to see cards that can be used in certain situations and not others, and how to effectively utilize the card's multiple abilities, and when to use certain parts of cards. And it really got me interested in how to make cards work together and how to effectively use the card's abilities at the right time. And that's what kept me interested in the game. So really, Scotty's the reason I still play. So that's the reason I am most thankful for Montgomery Scott. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Hello, this is Steven Stott from Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina. What card am I thankful for? And, well, I would say that card would be Type 8 phasers. I really enjoy playing the earlier era ships, such as the NX-01, the Vulcan ships, and, of course, our beloved Constitution class ships. But to make those playable in the game against your heavy hitters, you gotta have more firepower. Type 8 phasers does that. playing cross-factioning, you're able to slap that card on and do some valuable damage to other ships, having a, quality dice rolls. So, without a doubt, that's my pick for the card I'm most thankful for. There's others out there, but definitely that one helps to bring these ships into play and make them worth the money that we paid for them. This is Steve Stott from Columbia, South Carolina. Hope y'all are having great dice rolls. Take care. Bye.
To wrap things up, we're going to steal from the Nemesis wedding. And just remember, no matter how weird and how much you question the releases of retail ships, there are always blue skies ahead. And no, I'm not going to sing, even though I love that song. Nick paid me enough to not sing. We'll save that for the musical episode.
The stars are lined with latinum.
Too bad nobody values latinum right now.
One day, my friend, one day. Get in on the ground level. Buy in now. One day it will be.
You sound like a Ferengi right now.
Well, as soon as somebody invents those replicators, gold will be worthless. Latinum's where it's at.
All right, but we're getting silly. It's now 12:30 when we're recording, and that's typically our cutoff time. It's night time for us.
Curfew. Bless you.
I was like, wait, curfew? No, curfew doesn't happen. We're too old for curfew.
You're never too old for curfew when Mom's around.
Whatever you say, Nick. All right, but before this gets even sillier, I think we should listen to the lady telling us that the warp core is exploding.
8.
And get out of here.
7.
Good night, Captain.
6.
So
5,
until next time.
4.
This is Nick.
3.
And this is David.
2.
Ejecting the
1.
core.
Warp core ejected.
Warp Core Breach is produced by Nick Norris and David Montgomery, with additional content from our contributors. Our computer is voiced by Corinne Donnelly.
Warp Core Breach is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with CBS Studios Incorporated or the Star Trek franchise. All Star Trek trademarks and logos are owned by CBS Studios Incorporated.
All sound files are used under Creative Commons 3.0 by attribution. For specifics, please visit our Facebook page by searching Warp Core Breach Podcast. If you want to contribute to the show, let us know on the Facebook page, or you can email us at warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com.
I'm just trying to think of the weeniest, most worthless ship in some regards.
Oh, that is yet to come out. That will be the Bajoran lightship.
I was just thinking of that. Probably going to be one hull. Although I wonder how many evade it's going to have. Like
17.
0? 17? I was going to contrast myself like 0, 6. Then you jumped right to 17. It's like, whoa, Nelly!
It's going to be a 38-point named ship. 117-1.